I'm Sarah Judd Welch, CEO and Head of Community Design at Loyal. Loyal is a community development studio. We work with all kinds of clients, from Fortune 50 brands and early stage startups to creative companies and nonprofits, to put people at their center through community-driven strategies, campaigns, content, products, and platforms. Many people, perhaps some of you here, receive a weekly email from me saying community is this and community is that. Community is a platform for anyone who puts people at the center of their work. When I started Loyal just shy of 3 years ago, people basically told me that it wasn't going to work, that no one needed an agency that focused specifically on community. They said, there aren't any agencies like this that exist. And effectively, they were correct. Loyal is still one of only a handful of agencies in the world that focus specifically on community development and community strategy. That made me really nervous at first. What I've found, though, through all of our work and multiple conversations is that that's changing really quickly and very fast. And what I'm going to share with you here is what community looks like inside of big brands. I'm going to open up the blinds to what community looks like inside of big brands. And I'm going to tell you about how that's changing over the next 5 to 10 years and leave you with some insight into what possible career paths there are for you inside of brands, which, contrary to what Laurel said earlier, is actually going to be a really exciting and potentially lucrative opportunity for you. So what is community? I used to get this question in pretty much every conversation I had with Loyal in my early days. I would ask brands what are you doing in the community front? And they'd be like, oh, well, here's our Facebook page and our Twitter page. It was pretty disappointing and frustrating. Then a couple of years ago, I got a phone call from GE, and they said, we really want a community. We are extremely happy with our social media, and it's performing really well, and people love it. But we want to directly access our consumers and our B2B partners' consumers and learn from them. And we want to provide value directly to them as well. And I knew then from that conversation that the tides were beginning to turn for community and brands. What I learned from that engagement with GE and from all of our engagements thereafter with brands is that community is becoming of increasing priority for brands. And they don't necessarily yet think of community as a discipline and a practice unto itself in the way that you, the people in this room, and I think about community. They consider community to be a part of digital strategy. So what is digital strategy? Digital strategy is definitely a buzzword. What digital strategy means for brands is how to strategically get from point A to point B using the internet. It's not particularly profound, but it is something that brands invest a lot of money and time and resources into. It's something that they think about a lot. And increasingly, community is becoming a core part of digital strategy. So I want to give you a recap of what digital strategy currently looks like and how that's shifting towards community. So social media, this was the hottest digital trend of 5 years ago. Not terribly exciting, but brands are continuing to increase their budget in it. In 2014, oops, these are not quite showing up right. So in 2014, brands spent about 9% of their marketing budget on social media. In 2015, it's 15%. In 2016, and over the next 5 years, that's anticipated to go up to 21%. It's an expected part of digital strategy today, one that's not particularly exciting to most of us here. And then content. Content marketing is the hottest digital marketing trend right now. We've seen brands like Pepsi, Marriott, Merrill Lynch invest in content, and even Uber is currently hiring for a global director of editorial, which is not a job I'm endorsing, but it's out there. Here's some stats for content marketing in 2015. 70% of marketers are shifting their budget towards original content. 23% of brands are spending over half of their digital marketing budget on content. In fact, Coca-Cola is now spending more money on content marketing and original content than on TV ads. Something that I never expected to happen. But this is definitely not without challenges. Content marketing is a seriously expensive undertaking, and it's also operationally intensive. 33.7% of brands cite budget as their #1 concern for digital marketing, and 21.6% say that they have a difficult time measuring results, specifically with content marketing. And as we all know, an audience is not the same thing as an engaged community, nor is it nearly as valuable. However, things are beginning to change. According to Salesforce's 2015 marketing survey, which just recently came out, customer satisfaction is a top priority for brands. This is second only to revenue growth. Retention ties for third, which is tied with ROI and customer acquisition. I don't know about you, but those stats really surprised me. This is something that I've known in my gut for years was happening, but it wasn't until I read this survey that I saw the data that actually showed this to me. Further, deepening customer relationships is 7th in priority out of 20 for marketers. So things are beginning to change. And on top of that, I don't know if this is common knowledge for you, but this is something that I've been hearing for years. It costs 5 times as much to acquire a customer as to keep one. And the ROI for traditional marketing channels is decreasing year over year. All of this is pushing brands to shift digital strategy from social to content marketing and soon to community. So what's next? Many brands are still struggling with community. They're still trying to figure out how to prioritize and best tackle concepts like retention, customer satisfaction, and engagement. But there are some brands that are doing a fantastic job, and I want to walk you through 4 examples. First, American Express Open Forum. This launched in 2013 as a community platform for small business owners. It has had some successes and challenges. Amex they've had community and the concept of membership built into their business model since the 1980s. And this was their long view way of trying to push that out into the world and deepen their relationship with the customers and provide success and resources to them up front before they even become customers. As a member of their team said to me back then, the more successful small business owners are, the more successful Amex will be. And this is actually just one of multiple initiatives within Amex focused specifically on community. Nike. Nike launched a community forum in January of 2014. It was short-lived due to low engagement and was quickly shut down. What we can learn from this, however, is how important purpose is to community and also how incredibly important it is to understand your users' wants and needs. I'm hoping that we're going to see more online community initiatives from Nike in the future. In the meantime, they're definitely doing a kick-ass job with their local street teams and on-the-ground activations. Lego. Lego has an online ambassador network specifically for adults. For the adult ambassadors, this is their opportunity to see what's coming up in Lego's roadmaps and play with some products that are not yet out on shelves in stores. And for Lego, it gives them immediate access to a pool of researchers and testers who are already interested and invested in their brand. This is their way to shorten their product development cycle and lower cost. Under Armour. So Under Armour does not yet have a community platform. However, they've recently made 3 acquisitions: Edomondo, MyPal Fitness, and MapMyFitness. And even Yahoo Finance thinks that they're launching a community initiative soon. I never thought I'd see that from Yahoo Finance, but it's there in print. These are just a couple different ways that brands are experimenting and investing in community. All these stats and case studies go to show of what's happening currently with brands right now and in digital strategy. Community will be the next phase of digital marketing. And community will become core to digital strategy. And this is going to happen in just the next few years. I want to walk you through 3 different ways in which this is going to happen. And this is just 3 of many different ways as the applications of community and digital will be across the entire organization. Employee communities. As we saw earlier in our stats, it's incredibly expensive for companies to produce content, and this is a very high priority and concern for them. However, their greatest asset in producing content is immediately within their grasp, and that's their employees. There's already a few platforms out there that are working on employee communities, including Honey, which is an employee engagement tool, Brave New World, which is a learning management system across the organization. Both of those platforms are replacing a software which maybe some of you who worked in corporations would be more familiar with, SharePoint, which is very quickly dying. Employee communities are the way for not only for companies to retain and engage their employees, which as we all know with workforce trends is becoming a major concern, but it also helps them to uncover relevant insights within their organization and use those insights to produce content at a lower cost than it would be to hire an external agency to go in the organization, find the insights, and then produce the content externally. More user-generated content. Brands are already using UGC to lower their costs of production and to engage consumers. Rebel Mouse is working on this. There's also a new initiative from Night Mozilla Foundation, the Washington Post, and the New York Times, who are all working together on an open source software to create something called the Coral Project, which I highly recommend all of you check out. The Coral Project is working together, they're all working together to create a software that is transferable commenting and UGC platform and software between multiple media sites that directly engages consumers and lowers costs for publishers. Owned communities. As we're seeing with Open Platform and what we'll see soon from Under Armour, many brands are beginning to build their own products and communities and community platforms. I think this is something that is coming out of this is going to sound dramatic, but is somewhat true, the failures of social media and the inability to actually get what they want out of social media. Owned communities allow consumers to engage and directly own the relationships with consumers, and it also, they don't have to pay to play, they own all of their data, they can manipulate the data, and ultimately for many brands, it makes more sense financially to invest in their own communities and their own software and platforms than it is to use other software out there. For other brands, they're definitely going to start making acquisitions so they have that product talent in-house, they can build on it. So why do brands want to do this? Well, there are a few reasons. The first of which is IP. This is specific to larger companies like IBM, GE, HP, basically any large technology company. Today, a lot of technological innovation is happening not inside big companies as it used to, but outside the company in really small startups and even in people's garages. These big brands want to stay close to all this innovation that's happening, both so that they can learn, so that they can engage, and also for acquisitions. This helps them to remain competitive. Defensibility. We all know how important brand loyalty is. User experience is also becoming incredibly important, and this is why brands like Time Warner are in more and more danger every day. Research. As we saw with Lego, brands are going to begin to invest more in research communities so that they can lower their costs and decrease their product development cycle, decrease the time of developing new products by putting them out into the communities preemptively, having them test, getting results and feedback, and iterating. So I want to give you some insight into Loyal's revenue breakdown. I'd like to think that we work with some of the most innovative and cutting-edge risk-taking companies out there. Based on these stats and case studies I just recently presented, you'd think that the majority of our revenue comes from the marketing department. However, in fact, only 50% of our revenue comes from marketing teams. 25% of the time, we're hired by product teams, and 25% of the time, we're hired by innovation teams. My understanding of why this is the way that it is because as community becomes core to digital and digital becomes core to the business, that's spreading across the organization from product to HR to operations and business development. And I expect that over the next few years, we're going to see more of this bubble come from product and innovation and even HR and operations as well. So what does this mean for you, the community builder? Well, brands are going to be dying to hire people like you in the next couple years. You are going to be the experts in the room, and while you might not be the most senior, everyone inside of brands is going to be looking to you on how to best implement and grow their communities. And that's a really special opportunity. There's definitely going to be more community roles within brands: chief community officer, director of community, community manager, and so on. But your skills are actually going to be incredibly relevant in other roles as well. As community becomes core to digital and spreads across the organization, there's going to be so many opportunities on many teams for you to apply your skills. First of which is going to be product. Product management, user research and testing, user experience, and product marketing are going to become incredibly important. And as you, the community builder, talk to your users every day, you know what they want and need. And I know that many of you actually have these skills. You might not call it product management, but part of your job is to figure out what people want and figure out how to build it. So you are incredibly well set up to move into these roles. Relationship management. Akin to what influencer management is for PR, I think that we'll see something new, customer management. Direct management with customers to uncover their customer stories and then use those for marketing campaigns. I think that we'll even see new types of software systems that support this. Rather than simply having a CMS, we'll have RMSs and EMSs, specifically engagement management software. Nation Builder's already working on this and selling it into brands, which is pretty interesting. Digital strategy. Of course, there's going to be plenty of digital strategist roles, and they're going to be looking for people who have experience in community strategy. Right now, content strategy is one of the hardest roles to hire for. I'm not sure how many of you have tried to hire for community strategy, but it's a really tough market right now because those roles are in such high demand, and there simply aren't enough people who have deep, relevant experience. That same thing is going to happen as soon as this shift really takes over digital strategy. Every big brand is going to be hiring community strategists and digital strategists who are familiar with community, and all of you are going to be incredibly eligible for that role. Soft skills. Particularly as we move from startups to brands, soft skills are going to be really important, and it's not going to be an easy transition. Managing up is going to be incredibly important. Again, as I said earlier, you might not be the most senior person in the room if you work for a brand, but you certainly will be the most expert. And the ability to sell in your strategies and your concepts and ideas, which you have experience in and have data to back up your experience and your recommendations, you're going to need to sell that into the C-suite. So persuasion and selling up and managing up are going to become incredibly important. Translation's also going to be important. Community is not going to be a siloed role, even if it is a separate department within the brands. It's going to have to work cross-functionally across the organization. So you're going to need to know how to talk to developers, how to talk to designers, how to talk to someone in sales and operations and even research. And you're going to need to be able to translate what you do in the language that you use day to day into their terms and vice versa. Comfort with ambiguity. Many of us who work at startups, you're already pretty comfortable with ambiguity. This is going to be super important as digital strategy will always be in flux. And after community, after this is like intertwined and ingrained in business strategy, there's going to be another thing too, and you're going to need to be able to roll with that. But at that point, community will be so core that it's not going to even be a concern. Fluency in media is also going to be really important. As we saw, social media is still really important in digital strategy. What HTML is for startups, social media is for brands. And even if you never touch a social media channel, it's a skill that you need to know and understand. I think that all this is really exciting, and I know that community is going to be core to digital in the next couple of years, and I'm so excited to see that brands are investing in community and in community hires. And I hope that all of you are as excited about that opportunity too. Thank you.